So a leader, whether it's in business or government or in the community, is going to need to orient themselves to be flexible, to lead in a constantly adapting, changing environment, and to be looking from a future that's emerging, a future that wants to happen, as opposed to here's the way we've done it, and now I'm expecting the expected, and I want it to go back to normal. I think what I'm hearing us say is it's not going to go back to whatever normal was. We're in a new world, and it's already shaping and changing us, even if we're not present to it. So everything that I've heard you say has me see we're going to need to embrace being at the far point. You've talked about we're at the frontier of our being, at the frontier of our culture and ecosystems, at the frontier of change. The far point then is that place that most chaos can happen without the system or the company or the group of people or the culture just falling apart and disintegrating. It's sometimes an uncomfortable place to be, and also a very inspiring place to be. And it is the place where a small amount of coherence can catalyze movement to the next order that you're pointing to. The least amount of life force, the least amount of energy can happen when we're at the far point and things are really chaotic. We can bring the least amount of order in and take it to the next order of magnitude. So having these new skills and these new sensibilities are going to help us navigate the level of change that we're in. I'm wondering if you could give an example of moving something from local to non-local, of what that is to move an order of magnitude, and how do we know we've done it? As leaders, how do we know we've moved, that we're at the far point, and then how do we know that we have moved an order of magnitude?
Ironically enough, sports gives us a great example that in certain places, whether it's Western football or world football,
Yeah.
we talk about football, is that there might be a local football experience,
Yeah.
Friday night local football experience that then morphs to, let's say, from local city to a state thing or a college thing, which then moves to quote unquote professional. So it moves from amateur or high school to college to professional level, that then moves from something very local, our local sports team, to a regional, to then professional. And so then that then is in a larger coliseum, which is still local to that coliseum, to then it becomes broadcast.
Yeah.
Then it might be that local coliseum's event is broadcast nationally to internationally. So then what was very, very local can become global. That might be broadcast to more than 100 countries.
Yeah.
Right. So whether it's the World Cup or what have you, it could be now worldwide, globally. So then broadcast to the entire planet might be that then when one person makes a statement or something happens at that event that is geographically local, it now becomes a world event and ripples out and creates a conversation that now is a global conversation. So we've taken something that's very local to the far point of global, which may now leak into the metaverse, which becomes even a different experience. And we're at that far point of where broadcast is gone to as far as it can go without it moving into the metaverse.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear you saying that that things can move very rapidly at the far point, and the adaptations and the orders of magnitude that can ripple out could make a huge difference very quickly. And so understanding what our impact is and knowing that exponential evolution can happen in a moment, where perhaps it used to take hundreds of years or thousands of years to change something. Now we're seeing it just happen in decades, or to your point, perhaps change overnight with an event that's been broadcast, a local event that's been broadcast, and somebody makes a statement like that. So when we're talking about new maps and mapping and having a compass, leaders have been at the forefront and have been the ones to say, here's the vision, here's where we're going, here's what's happening. And the model or the map that's been used for leaders for millennia, I think Joseph Campbell probably has something to say about that. Could you talk about that, Daniel? This model we've had for leadership and for transformation?
Yeah, Joseph Campbell devoted a lifetime to exploring the world's myths. And that's not myth as true false, that's myth as blueprint, or as you say, map. And his lifetime of research then presents the emergence of what's called the hero's journey, that is universal to cultures all over the world, for then the map for how you become a high functioning adult in their culture. So it's the blueprint and the map. And the hero's journey then would articulate how someone might be called to a certain, they'd say, answer the call to adventure, which might say is mission or purpose or the vision of their calling or why they're on the planet. And then that calling would call them to go enter the wilderness, to be challenged at the edge of the wilderness, receive mentoring and unexpected guidance in the adventure in the wilderness, to gain the wisdom and the boon of that journey, and then bring it back to up-level their culture.
Yeah.
So then we fashioned our leaders around this hero's journey metaphor, and many of our superhero movies exemplifying and amplifying this hero's journey individual thing. It's now moving a little bit more to hero teams.
Yep, I've noticed that.
So then Joseph Campbell, after a lifetime of exploring this, was saying right before he died that the hero's journey, the myth as blueprint that the hero's journey presents us, that has been true for thousands of years, will no longer take us collectively where we now need to go in the new world we find ourselves in. And he was already saying this before he died, so that to go where we need to go now, there's a new myth that we need to present, and we need to create the space to be present too. And that hero's journey will still be invaluable to us as individuals.
Yeah.
In our growing up, that we still need to, as individuals, go through the hero's journey and through the stage structures of mind that cultivates the evolution of. However, collectively, he was pointing already before he died to the emergence of the call to a new collective myth, and that there won't be one person who will develop that we will co-create that together. And it will take some time for us to collectively do that. However, we do need to, for that to happen, presence the space and create the space for that emergence.
Again, that's another kind of shift with presence and awareness that a leader will need to be able to bring, because it sounds like there's just, with this new blueprint emerging and it being already in progress, that there's a way we need to come together and be in conversation, not to find the answer, not to come up with the answer like the hero might, but to actually engage together, to be present and aware of the pull of the future and of this myth emerging. And it seems to me that, well, we're going to be going through many things that are going to be changing, that are things we'll need to let go of, new skills we'll need to learn. And as things change exteriorly, we need a way to be anchored and to remain centered within this simultaneous, complex, multiple, exponential, cascading change that's really flowing through the world that is the new world right now. Can you talk about non-dual ignition?
Yeah, non-dual ignition would be a way of saying that inspirational uplift that we talked about, that we have the opportunity of cultivating. Coming from non-dual ignition means that that's coming from the inside of us, and we then can be motivated and inspired from that place that is not contingent on what's happening outside of us. And as the world goes through cascading multiple disruptions and transformations, and as the maps are changing moment by moment, to be able to hold that place of center and awareness in a world where the maps are changing moment by moment,
Yeah.
means that if my sense of peace and presence and awareness is not contingent on what's happening outside of me, then I can hold a place of, let's say, equilibrium, if you will, that I can be present to what's happening from a place of curiosity, if you would say, interesting phenomena, so to speak.
Yes.
So that I don't find my mood being created by how I feel about whether it's good or bad, this change that's happening in the moment.
Yeah.
So then from a place of transrational presence, if you will, I can presence what's happening from a place of equanimity, if you will,
Yeah.
of a kind of that's peace and a centeredness that's coming from within, that's not contingent.
Yeah.
And aligning things outside of me in a certain way.
So leadership becomes a whole different set of skills and a whole set of shifts in internal awareness and presencing that perhaps in the past business has thought of as pretty airy-fairy or not important or not something that can be useful. And yet what we're saying is leaders who can orchestrate at this intersection that we're talking about, where there is cascading exponential change and multiple simultaneous disruptions, possibilities, meanings, that they're going to need to be able to weave and stand at the crossroads of empowerment and mastery. That they're going to need to cultivate what's called extended mind and have a different sense of action confidence. This is a journey, not just for leaders, but for everybody, that's into the unknowable unknown for humanity, that's calling for a great uplift together. And it's something we collectively are going to need to be able to do. We are the HuPerson Project. This is the WYRK work to be done. Come join us. Let's have a conversation.